Welcome, phobophiles. This is Tales of the Midnight Hour. I'm your host, Nicole Nightfall, here to guide you into the shadows and through the midnight hour. Prepare yourself for tales that will haunt your dreams and conjure your deepest fears. Listen closely as we step into the darkness together. Join me in this chilling tale, where a husband's regret and a mother's sleep paralysis unravel a horrifying mystery that blurs the line between reality and nightmare.
My wife suffered from sleep paralysis, and it drove a wedge between us that I only fully realized after she was gone. To be honest, I played a part in that divide. With one regrettable comment, I set us on a path that led to losing my wife and daughter, who were my entire world. While my wife wasn't one to keep a journal, the severity of her sleep paralysis compelled her to document her experiences, starting from the very first episode. I can't fathom the horror she endured during her final days here. I was supposed to be her support, but I failed her. The following are direct excerpts from her logs with our names changed to husband and daughter for privacy.
I woke with the eerie feeling that someone was climbing the stairs to my bedroom. My body lay paralyzed, capable only of breathing. My thoughts raced to my daughter in the next room. I struggled against the paralysis, every muscle straining to break free, while the intruder continued their ascent. The terror was overwhelming. When I finally snapped out of it, I strained to hear footsteps on the stairs. I sat in silence for what felt like an eternity before I dared to process what had just transpired. I'm not sure how I sensed someone coming up the stairs. There were no sounds, no sights. In fact, I don't think my eyes were truly open. It felt like a nightmare, but I checked on my daughter and searched the house thoroughly, just in case. Sleep evaded me for the remainder of the night. Later that morning, I researched my experience online. After a few Google searches, I stumbled upon sleep paralysis. Waking up paralyzed, often accompanied by terrifying hallucinations. Close enough. When my husband returned from his graveyard shift, I shared everything with him. He dismissed it as a mere nightmare. It happened again last night. My body paralyzed, muscles refusing to obey. As the phantom neared my room, panic set in, and I struggled with all my might. I broke free just before they reached the door. I lay petrified in bed for the rest of the night, motionless. Again, I saw and heard nothing, just a creation of my mind, yet it felt so real. I couldn't confide in my husband. He wouldn't understand. I called my doctor's office and managed to secure an appointment that same afternoon. At the appointment, I described the sheer terror of my experiences. The doctor hesitated to prescribe medication, but understood my distress. He gave me a week-long trial, with a requirement to see a psychiatrist the following week. I spent the afternoon playing with my daughter, apprehensive about taking the medication. Oh, how I longed for a good night's sleep. Last night, I took the pill and collapsed into bed, exhausted. I slept like the dead. My husband, upon returning from work, entertained our daughter and let me sleep until noon. When he woke me, I was startled, heart racing. I was drenched in sweat, every muscle ached. I'd never slept so late. I chalked it up to stress and lack of sleep, took a couple of aspirin, and went about my day as usual, spending time with our daughter and ensuring my husband made it to work on time. When I didn't wake up this morning, I reluctantly had a serious talk with my husband about our daughter's safety. She was left unsupervised for hours while I slept. I agreed reluctantly to stop taking the medication. For now, it's the best I can do. Hopefully, the psychiatrist will have an alternative next week. Until then, I'll endure the pain. As soon as I stopped the medication, the sleep paralysis returned, worse than before. This time, the intruder entered my room. I'm grateful I snapped out of it quickly. I don't remember what the intruder looked like. My memory of it is fuzzy for some reason. I searched desperately for my pills. When I couldn't find them, I pleaded with my husband to return them. Instead, he said I was addicted and flushed them down the toilet, claiming it was for our daughter's safety. I had a brief breakdown and counted the nights until my appointment.
I was angry then, and I still believe I was justified. I remember thinking she was acting like an addict. I should have gotten her some help.
Last night, I awoke sensing the intruder in my room. Paralyzed, I struggled to break free, trying to make out the four beings in the room. It was like looking through a frosted window at the doctor's office. Squinting, I could barely discern them, tall, gray figures standing at each corner of my bed. They lifted me above the bed without moving. As I ascended, I felt enveloped in something tight and heavy. I thrashed to break free, fighting for my life. Eventually, I managed to pry my eyes open, crashing back onto the bed with my heart racing and my stomach lurching. I scanned the empty room, then jumped out of bed, frantically searching the house. I found nothing. My daughter lay awake in her bed. I reassured her it was just a bad dream, and she asked, "Did you dream about the gray men, Mommy?"
I'm not sure if her comment about the gray men was significant or not. Some think it is, but officials dismissed it as a product of my wife's psychosis. The following transcriptions are from scraps found in my wife's psychiatric room, written with a 2-inch pencil. They aren't dated, but the events described occurred between September 17th of 23 and September 21st of 23, the last time my wife was seen. I've arranged them in a coherent order after receiving copies from officials. Note, my wife had no history of mental illness prior to these events.
When I last wrote, I worried about my mental state. Enduring nightly sleep paralysis was terrifying. I didn't know if we should leave the house or if I was losing my mind. Without medication, I wouldn't last long. I stayed awake for 2 days, guarding my daughter and myself. On the night before my appointment, exhausted beyond measure, I took a double dose of over-the-counter sleep medication. I just needed one good night's sleep. I was roused from my slumber by my husband's panicked cries. Our daughter was missing. She vanished while I selfishly slept. I called the police, and my husband sobbed and shouted at me. It broke my heart to hear him like that. I assured him I could find her if only I could get off the meds. I shared the whole story with the police. The gray men gave up on me and took our daughter instead. The police escorted me to the hospital where I was to meet the psychiatrist that afternoon. Ignoring my protests, she evaluated me. Everyone thought it best if I stayed to rest. All I wanted was to sleep, so I agreed. That was yesterday. Since then, I've been in a fog. Now it's free time, and I'm coming down from my meds. Phone use is restricted, so I'm writing on scraps from the nurse's station. My mind's a haze. My mission's clear: get my daughter back. If only I could ditch these meds.
A nurse tech attested that around 10 p.m. on September 21st, 2019, during her rounds, she saw my wife in bed, apparently asleep. No one realized she was missing until 10:30 the next morning during the next shift's rounds. The police weren't called until nearly noon, after security combed the grounds and a hospital-wide meeting was held. It seems that the entire hospital was inept during the ordeal. Among my wife's belongings, police found her last meds hidden in crumpled papers with these notes. I couldn't speak to anyone at the hospital. All communication came through their lawyers. The staff seemed cold, and I never received an apology for losing my wife. The FBI took over. They suspect my wife and our daughter's disappearance, yet they've no explanation for how either vanished. They seem to have disappeared without a trace. Unlikely as it sounds, the cameras in my wife's room never caught her leaving. The unit was supposedly under lockdown. I know without a doubt my wife wouldn't harm our daughter. I'm at a loss. It kills me I didn't take my wife more seriously. Heartbroken doesn't begin to cover it. I'm living my worst nightmare.